How was the creativity of a single person able to shape an entire generation of fans? Who has never dreamed of being a Super Saiyan or using instant transmission? A story that gave birth to a vast universe, a man who became a legend. Akira Toriyama was one of the most important and influential manga artists to ever exist. He not only created a work that remains relevant to this day, but also influenced other manga authors. However, many mistakenly believe that Akira Toriyama is only defined by Dragon Ball, when in fact Dragon Ball was a consequence of previously established success. Today's video is very special for me because I'm a huge Dragon Ball fan, so we will delve into the history of Akira Toriyama to discover how his legacy was built. When we talk about Akira Toriyama, immediately what comes to mind is Dragon Ball, mainly because it was his most significant work. But before we get to his main achievement, we need to go back in time just a little bit to understand how his creative vision revolutionized the world. Since childhood, Toriyama had a passion for drawing. His initial inspiration came from Disney animations, especially 101 Dalmatians, as well as from Astro Boy, created by the father of modern manga, Osamu Tezuka. However, Toriyama was more interested in illustrations than actual manga. He also had an interest in action movies, westerns, wars, and science fiction, which later became the basis for themes in his stories. During his youth, Toriyama studied at a technical design school, later securing a job in an advertising company. However, due to the work routine, Toriyama resigned. It was during this job transition process that in 1977, Toriyama came across a contest called the Monthly Young Jump Award, sponsored by Shueisha, the largest Japanese manga publisher responsible for the Shonen Jump magazine, which publishes basically the main manga we know today. Toriyama participated in this contest for 2 consecutive years. In 1977, he created Our World, and in 1978, Mysterious Rainjack. Both manga were never officially published and they did not win the contest either. Mysterious Rainjack was disqualified because of elements that satirized Star Wars. However, this second project earned him a call from an editor at Shonen Jump named Kazuhiko Torishima, who saw the work of young Toriyama, who was 23 years old at the time. He told Toriyama not to give up and to continue with his works. From that point on, Akira Toriyama began to dive headfirst into manga production. In 1978, Toriyama released his first manga officially published by Shonen Jump called Wonder Island, which tells the story of a former kamikaze pilot named Furusu, who ended up on a strange island called Wonder Island during World War II. The first chapter of this manga is about Furusu trying to escape the island while encountering various different beings, such as a caveman, a fairy, and even a gorilla who teach him to fly a hang glider. The manga is full of original ideas, but it wasn't enough to achieve any success, ranking less in the magazine's audience index at the time. The following year, Toriyama had the opportunity to release the second chapter of Wonder Island, bringing a new story and new characters, along with many references to pop culture at the time. However, the manga also failed to become popular. Toriyama still had a third attempt with a manga called Today's Highlight Island, also published in 1979, which follows the adventure of a bully named Kanta. But like his 2 previous works, Today's Highlight Island was also a failure, despite having slightly better success than Wonder Island. Even so, it fell short of the expected success, and this series of failures made things complicated for the mangaka's life. Many people might think that now we're getting to the Dragon Ball part of this whole story, but the truth is that success doesn't come from one right move, but rather from successive attempts and errors that gather enough experience for a major success to be launched. Tomato, girl detective. You thought I was going to talk about Dr. Slump, right? Don't worry, we'll get there. Toriyama's first success as a mangaka came after the failure of Today's Highlight Island. Toriyama's editor, Kazuhiko Torishima, the same one who made that call to tell Toriyama not to give up, asked for a story featuring a female character. That's when Toriyama created Akai Tomato, a beautiful and clumsy young woman who works as a detective in the police force. Because of her clumsy nature, she caused chaos wherever she goes, and this was the turning point in Toriyama's career. Tomato achieved some success in Shonen Jump, obtaining good rankings in the magazine's popularity rankings, paving the way for his major success. Deciding to continue with the theme of an innocent and clumsy girl, Akira's first masterpiece emerged, Dr. Slump. Integrating characters, themes, and locations from his previous works, including even those that were failures, in 1980, Dr. Slump was released, a manga that tells the story of Arale, an android with human-like features created by a scientist named Senbei Norimaki, also known as Dr. Slump. The manga takes place in a location called Penguin Village, where humans coexist with anthropomorphic animals. Arale is an extremely powerful android, but very naive, and because of this, she constantly gets into misunderstandings. The manga focuses on the chaos caused by Arale, and also on the adventures of Senbei. Dr. Slump is a comedy manga full of puns, 5th-grade jokes, and parodies of Japanese and American culture. The series villain, Dr. Mashirito, is even based on his editor. Dr. Slump was a tremendous success in Shonen Jump, something that Akira himself did not expect. He and his editor were already planning the release of a next manga before Dr. Slump even debuted. However, Toriyama's manga was in publication until 1984, becoming one of Shonen Jump's main flagship series, even winning the Shogakukan Manga Award, one of the biggest annual manga awards in Japan. Dr. Slump won in the Shonen targeting teenage boys and Shoujo targeting teenage girls categories. In the same year, in 1981, with Torishima's encouragement, the manga received an anime adaptation produced by Toei Animation called Dr. Slump and Arale-chan, which lasted until 1986, totaling 243 episodes. In 1997, the anime received a remake with 74 episodes, along with 11 animated films, games, and dozens of publications and merchandise, solidifying Akira Toriyama's career as a mangaka. Dr. Slump was so important for Toriyama and for Shonen Jump that it became a habit in Japanese culture to turn successful manga into TV animations starting from it. During the publication of Dr. Slump, Toriyama also created several one-shots and other stories that serve not only to further increase the mangaka's influence, but also as the basis for his next manga. The greatest examples of this are Dragon Boy and The Adventures of Tongpu, both of which brought concepts used and expanded upon by Toriyama in the future. For instance, in The Adventures of Tongpu, we are introduced to the Hoi Poi capsules, while in Dragon Boy, we have a young martial artist living with his master in a remote location away from civilization. During his adventure to return the princess to her kingdom, he is helped by a special artifact called the Dragon Ball, which can summon a small dragon. Quite similar, isn't it? After the success of Dr. Slump, Toriyama decided to integrate not only this universe, but also a large portion of the elements developed for the other mangas he had created into his next work. This began 3 months after the end of Dr. Slump in 1984, marking the beginning of what became Akira Toriyama's greatest legacy and initiated the golden era of Shonen Jump. Dragon Ball began to be published at the end of 1984 and lasted until 1995, totaling 11 years working on this project that yielded 519 chapters. Toriyama was inspired by the well-known Chinese novel called Journey to the West, and also took inspiration from Jackie Chan's films for the martial arts elements involved in the plot, and thus emerged the story of Goku, a boy with a monkey tail who lives in the forest away from any contact with civilization, until one day he meets a young girl called Bulma, and they both set off in search of the Dragon Ball, and the rest, well, you already know. But Dragon Ball didn't start out as a huge success like Dr. Slump. During the first saga, the public reception was very average until the arrival of the Budokai Tenkaichi Tournament arc, where the popularity of the manga simply reached levels unimaginable by Shonen Jump. At the beginning of the Golden Age, the magazine reached a mark of 4 million copies sold weekly, reaching 6.8 million in the 1990s. Of course, it wasn't just because of Dragon Ball, as other successful manga were being published at the same time, such as Saint Seiya, Captain Tsubasa, Yu Yu Hakusho, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and many others that raised the bar for Shonen Jump. But Toriyama's manga played the main role in this achievement. The success of the Dragon Ball manga quickly led to an anime being developed, and in 1986, 2 years after the release of the manga, the Dragon Ball anime arrived on Japanese TV, consolidating the success we know today. Originally, the Dragon Ball anime was divided into 3 parts between 1986 and 1997. Dragon Ball, where we follow Goku during his childhood, bringing elements of humor mixed with action. Dragon Ball Z, where the elements of humor were reduced to focus only on action, bringing Goku into his adult phase together with his son and friends. And finally, Dragon Ball GT, which is an original toy adaptation that concludes Goku's story. All the success that Shonen Jump was achieving at the time allowed a Japanese publisher to aim to expand its market to an international audience for the first time, and Dragon Ball was a success all over the world. Despite Dragon Ball's success, the USA took time to grasp this new anime from Japan and, of course, attempted to do it their own way. In 1986, the first attempt to launch Dragon Ball was made by Harmony Gold USA. Only 13 episodes were released with significant changes, such as Goku being called Zero. After a brief testing period and reception below expectations, these 13 episodes were taken off the air, now considered lost dub by fans. The second attempt was in 1995. By then, Dragon Ball had already established success in other countries, and in Japan it was launching the Z Saga. However, the USA continued its attempts to do it their own way. This time, production and dubbing were handled by Funimation, in collaboration with Seagull Entertainment and BLT Productions. Despite the new dubbing, Dragon Ball was taken off the air before the first season ended. The reason for this was the Z Saga. With the intent of presenting a story more focused on martial arts, Dragon Ball was replaced by Dragon Ball Z, now in collaboration with Saban Entertainment and Ocean Studios. The problem was that Dragon Ball Z had too much violence for the young children audience that Funimation was targeting. This led to the series undergoing numerous cuts, censorship, and changes in dubbing to adapt to the audience. Character names were changed too, like Tien Shinhan becoming Tien and Kuririn becoming Krillin. Even powers were affected by this. Genki-Dama became Spirit Bomb and teleportation became instant transmission. As a result, 14 out of the first 67 episodes were cut, and Dragon Ball once again failed to find its audience, being cancelled in May 1998 after only 2 seasons aired, around 53 episodes. However, Dragon Ball was already so strong that even though Funimation seemed to want to do everything to destroy the franchise, the anime was gaining some success. The third attempt was made in 1998, this time with a new dubbing by Saban Ocean Dub and a new airing schedule. Dragon Ball Z began airing on Cartoon Network, finally reaching the desired audience and quickly becoming the success everyone had hoped for. Recognizing the success they had on their hands, Funimation started dubbing the episodes themselves and also reduced censorship. Despite the name change and the drop in quality compared to the Ocean dub, Dragon Ball Z became the franchise's most successful release in the USA, rivaling the success of Pokemon, and it helped expand the popularity of anime in general among American audience between the late 1990s and early 2000s. This success led Funimation to redub some episodes of Dragon Ball, re-releasing the classic saga again. In 2003, when Dragon Ball Z finished airing, Funimation decided to also release Dragon Ball GT. However, in Japan, Dragon Ball GT experienced a drop in viewership due to the quality of its early episodes. Fearing a similar outcome, Funimation decided to start Dragon Ball GT by skipping its beginning and jumping straight to the most important fights. They created only one special episode to explain what happened to Goku that made him turn into a child again. After Dragon Ball GT ended, the initial episodes were released normally in a format called Lost Episodes. Despite this rocky start and various copyright issues, some Dragon Ball episodes belong to another company that had acquired the broadcasting rights. The first 53 episodes of Dragon Ball were only dubbed by Funimation starting in 2004, when the company lost the broadcasting rights. Nevertheless, the franchise managed to overcome all the confusion created by Funimation, building a strong audience that closely followed Goku's story, even with a messy start. But the success didn't stop there. Dragon Ball was responsible for influencing the new generation of manga artists like Eiichiro Oda, who created One Piece, and Masashi Kishimoto, the creator of Naruto. These two works would later be referenced as the Big Three of shonen along with Bleach. Besides that, Dragon Ball expanded into every possible media: animated films, games, trading cards, sticker albums, books, spin-offs, live action, which we pretend never existed. And if all that wasn't enough, the anime received a remastered version called Dragon Ball Kai in 2009. In 2013, a new film was released, Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods, which brought Goku back for a new adventure set after the battle against Kid Buu and before the last episode of Dragon Ball Z. With the success of the film, a sequel was produced called Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F, released in 2015. In the same year, an anime and manga continuation began under the title of Dragon Ball Super, illustrated by mangaka Toyotaru under Toriyama's supervision. The story follows Goku after the end of the Majin Buu saga, adapting the two subsequent films into its early arcs. Despite the mixed reception initially due to the questionable animation quality, Dragon Ball Super quickly found its place during its latest adapted arc for the anime called the Tournament of Power, or Universe Survival, where Goku and his friends faced warriors from various universes to decide who would be the strongest. The last episode featured a climax of such impressive battle that people gathered in various places around the world to watch it on big screens scattered throughout cities. This is something not every anime can achieve. Dragon Ball has over 30 years of history that remains relevant to this day. In 1986, Akira Toriyama had no idea he was creating a cultural phenomenon. Dragon Ball influenced an entire generation, creating a legion of fans worldwide who ensure the story stays alive. It has become a milestone in human history, with Goku attaining a relevance akin to real historical figures. Despite the release of many superior quality anime nowadays, it doesn't diminish Dragon Ball's global importance. Because what makes Dragon Ball truly great is its ability to forge connections among people. In an era where internet access wasn't widespread, Dragon Ball brought together children from all walks of life. Children who grew up following Goku's journey and continue to do so. It's not about complexity, it's about heart. Dragon Ball transcended cultural and linguistic boundaries, uniting people from diverse backgrounds in a shared love for this incredible saga. The message of courage, friendship, and overcoming obstacles conveyed by Goku and his friends has touched the hearts of millions, inspiring them to believe in themselves and never give up. The legacy of Dragon Ball is immortal. It's a story that has passed from generation to generation, captivating each new audience that ventures into this world of powerful warriors and epic battles. Even after decades, the emotional impact of Dragon Ball remains intact, reigniting the flame of nostalgia in old fans and winning the hearts of a new generation of admirers. As long as the world continues to be inspired by Goku and his companions, Dragon Ball will be eternal. Its power to unite people and convey universal values is truly exceptional. Akira Toriyama's story and his legacy in Dragon Ball transcend time and fiction, leaving a permanent mark on the hearts of all those who embark on this legendary journey. Dragon Ball is more than just a manga or an anime. It's a symbol of strength, perseverance, and unity. It's a testament to the power of human imagination and the lasting impact a story can have on our lives. Above all, it's a reminder that no matter where we are in the world, we can all connect through our shared dreams and passions. But does this mean that Akira Toriyama is only about Dragon Ball and mangas? Actually, no. Now, we are entering another aspect of Toriyama's life: character design. During the publication of the Dragon Ball manga, Toriyama was already quite famous and continued to work on side projects, releasing several other one-shots and smaller manga. He was also invited to participate in other types of projects, usually as a character designer, such as in the short film called Apple Pop, made for a children's program. But where Toriyama really stood out was in the realm of video games. In 1986, Torishima, Toriyama's editor, assigned the manga artist to develop the game Dragon Quest, a medieval fantasy RPG. Toriyama was responsible for creating the characters, and the game was another massive success, establishing the manga artist as a key figure in character development for later games, including the franchise's most recent ones. Dragon Quest was also adapted into an anime and manga series known as Dragon Quest: The Adventure of Dai. Recently, in 2020, the anime received a remake with 100 episodes. Dragon Quest also has animated films, as well as numerous games and spin-offs, making it another success in Toriyama's career. But the gaming career doesn't stop there. In 1993, Toriyama wrote a manga called Go Go Eggman, which was adapted into a Super Nintendo game released only in Japan. It also received an animated short of the same name, but it was in 1995 that Toriyama truly shone. Squaresoft, the owner of the Final Fantasy franchise, before the merger with Enix, decided to assemble what was considered the dream team to create a game that would mark the fourth generation of consoles, an RPG that would transcend time. They brought together Hironobu Sakaguchi, the creator of Final Fantasy, Yuji Horai, the creator of Dragon Quest, Nobuo Uematsu, the composer of Final Fantasy music, Kazuhiko Aoki, the producer of the Final Fantasy franchise, and Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball. They combined force to create the most acclaimed RPG of all time, Chrono Trigger. Even if you're not an RPG fan or have never played Chrono Trigger, you know that this game always makes it onto any list of the best games ever made. Chrono Trigger built a massive fanbase and became an absolute classic, excelling in story, gameplay, and soundtrack. It's rare to hear anyone speak negatively about Chrono Trigger because this game was designed to be a milestone in video game history. It couldn't have gone wrong with a team like that. Someday, I'll bring a more in-depth story of Chrono Trigger here on the channel. Toriyama continued with his character design work for games, and recently, the game Sandland was released, based on a short manga created by Akira himself in the 2000s. The game is an action RPG set in a desert world where humans and demons fight for survival. Like the manga, the game follows the adventures of the Prince of Darkness Beelzebub, who team up with a human to search for water in the desert. Although Sandland isn't very well known, the manga did enjoy some success during its publication. In addition to the game, it will also receive an animated film. After the end of the Dragon Ball manga, Toriyama decided to focus only on short projects. For him, developing Dragon Ball was very exhausting during the 11 years. Toriyama has also worked as a designer for collectible miniatures. However, he mainly supervised his productions while leaving the big projects to others, as in the case of Dragon Ball Super, which is illustrated by Toyotaro. Akira Toriyama's legacy is truly impressive. His creativity and storytelling skills have elevated him to be one of the most important and influential manga artists in the world. While many primarily associate Toriyama with Dragon Ball, his career was full of notable projects that have shaped the manga and gaming industries. Akira Toriyama was a living legend whose legacy will endure through the pages of manga, the screens of anime, and the hearts of fans worldwide. His contribution to the entertainment industry is immeasurable, and his impact will continue to be felt for many future generations. Toriyama's works were part of my childhood. I can't imagine what my life would be like if I hadn't watched Dragon Ball or played Chrono Trigger in Dragon Quest. I'm very grateful to have grown up following Goku's adventures. Nowadays, everything I consume related to Japanese culture is because of Dragon Ball. And this is my way of honoring and thanking for the incredible legacy of the greatest master of all, Akira Toriyama.